bearing with us. I promise it's going to be worthwhile. By the way, if you're at the back, there's still some seats in the middle here, more to the front, available, so do not hesitate to come closer. Let's make it very cozy, let's make it intimate, and at the same time, very worldly. Our next guest, I mean, you're lucky. It's a unique encounter that you are going to have. It's a privilege to hear our next guest share his ideas. His name is Shigeru Ban. He's an architect and a professor at Keio University in Japan. He won the Pritzker Prize, which is as much as the Nobel Prize of Architecture, so to speak. But most of all, he's a man who thinks out of the box. He's actually a very widely interested man. He's also very musical, for example. Originally, he wanted to become a carpenter, a love for craftsmanship, for wood, for the tradition of building, creating with wooden materials. He got from a very young age. Later, he decided it would be architecture after all, and he studied in the US and in Europe, but never ceased to be inspired by his Japanese roots. It's a man with a very big heart, putting his talents to use, not only to create for the wealthy and powerful, but also for people like you and me, and for people who are unwittingly caught up in disaster or dire circumstances. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Shigeru Ban.
Hello, thank you very much for coming for this festival. As a part of the ambassador of New European Bauhaus high round table, I'm really honored to present my project in front of you. But also, this for the 45-minute session, first 25 minutes I'm going to show you my project working in disaster area as architect. Then I'm going to bring my student, actually I met just today first time, assembling the partition system which we are working in for the Ukrainian refugees now. So they're going to demonstrate to you what we are doing in all over Europe for hosting the refugees. After I graduated the Cooper Union School of Architecture in New York, I practiced 10 years. Then I was very disappointed about my own profession as architect, because we are mostly working for privileged people, not for the society. The privileged people who has money and power, because power and money is invisible, they hire us to make a monument, to show off their power to the public. I'm not saying I'm not interested in making the monument, I love to do it, but I was very disappointed. We are just working for particular people who has money. But I thought I can use my knowledge and experiences not only for privileged people, but also the general public, even people who lost their houses by disasters. So this is why I started working in disaster area. Also, as you know, in Japan, we have any natural disaster, earthquake, flooding, typhoon. Now we have facing the nuclear problem also. And particularly, for example, the earthquake never kill people, but collapse of the building kill people. That's our responsibility as architect. However, when cities are rebuilt, there is a new project coming for architects, so they are looking for new project after the disaster. However, I found out before cities are rebuilt, the victims of the disaster are facing and suffering at a very poor living condition in shelters and temporary houses before cities are rebuilt. So I thought this is our responsibility as architect in order to improve their living condition before cities are rebuilt. That is why I started working in disaster area. Can I start my slide, please? I use concrete, steel, wood, anything, any material. But also what I invented is using paper tube made of recycled paper. Actually, we are demonstrating this with the real material. when I start my practice, I didn't have any experience designing architecture, so I was designing exhibition. This is my first exhibition for my favorite architect from Finland, Alvar Aalto. Because Alvar Aalto uses a lot of natural material like wood, I want to design the exhibition like Alvar Aalto's architecture. However, I had very small, limited budget of the exhibition, so that I had to look for some alternative material. Then I found the paper tube, which was used for the drafting paper, fax paper roll, also the films. That was available. I hate to throw things away. So here, small diameter tube used as a ceiling. This is what Alberto designed in B-Freeze library. And the larger diameter tube was used as a freestanding partition. Then I found out material is much, much stronger than I expected. Next, please. So I started testing with engineers in order to use this recycled paper tube as a main building structural material. So that then we found the good data. Next, please. Then actually I started developing the structure before people start talking about environment, sustainability, recycling. This was started in 1985, before people start talking about the environment. So this is not because of environmental issue. I just didn't want to waste material. So this is my own weekend house, which is not used because I have no weekend. I'm traveling every time, so it's still empty. But this was built 1990 in order to get government permission with the paper tube as a main permanent building material. So this house is still there, it's very clean because I'm not using. Next, please. Then also I built some arch structure, and I also designed the paper tube with wooden joint. Again, I got the government permission to make as a permanent building. Next, please. Then year 2000, everyone all over the world start talking about the environment issue. So this is a pavilion for World Expo in Hanover City in Germany. I was asked, because I was only one in Japan using recyclable material for building. So I was chosen to design Japanese pavilion. This is all the paper tube locally made in Germany. And as a part of the contract with the paper tube company, I asked them to collect all the used paper after the building dismantled, because the expo is only for half a year. Then they have to recycle as a part of the contract. Also, I didn't want to use the concrete, because concrete is rather difficult material to recycle. So here is foundation made of wooden box filled with sand. And also this joint of paper tube is just fabric tape. It's very inexpensive, easy to reuse. And the membrane, normally membrane is made of this. This is this material is not actually environmental friendly. So I invented the material, the paper is can be fire protected and also waterproof. So that this is the paper roofing material we invented. Next, please. Now going to the disaster situation. 1994, there is the genocide in Rwanda between two tribes, Tutsi and Hutu, and over 2 million people became refugees. And I saw these two photos in the magazines, and I was very surprised. This is the shelters made by UN, United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, and the refugees are freezing with blanket. And I read the article, during the rainy season, this shelter is not good enough to keep them warm. So I thought we have to improve the shelter, otherwise any medical care doesn't help them. So I wrote a letter to United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees in Geneva. Of course, no reply. So I went to there without any appointment, and I was very lucky to meet German architect who was responsible for the shelter construction, and he had some problem. And because of that, I was hired as a consultant to develop my idea further. I will explain why. This is a typical shelter made by UNHCR. Refugees have to cut the trees to make a frame, and they put the plastic sheet given by UN, 4 meters by 6 meters. Over 2 million people cut the trees. So this area used to be the forest, but all the trees gone. And they go much farther to cut more trees. So this cause the very serious environmental deforestation and the environmental problem. So that is why UN start providing them aluminum pipes. But aluminum is very expensive material locally. Refugees sold them out for money and cut the trees again. That's why providing aluminum pipe was not a good solution. So that was the timing I met this German architect to propose my idea of recycled paper tube for the structure. Next, please. And one of the good Swiss furniture company supported us to make a different prototypes. And we also built in Rwanda. The issue was I want to give them something more comfortable. However, because of UN policies, they want them to go back to home as soon as possible. So they think if we give them something too comfortable, they're going to stay longer. That's why my project was only to replace the wood by paper tube, and the budget was only $50 per unit. That was our budget. That's why it's a very simple shelter with a paper tube frame and the UN tarpaulins. Next, please. Year after, 1995, city of Kobe, Japan, we had a big earthquake and on the big fire. And I found out there is the Vietnamese refugees living in Kobe, because that's the first time Japanese government accepted formally the refugees from Vietnam, and they are living and studying in the city of Kobe. Because they are Catholic people, they are gathering even after the earthquake at the Catholic church. And I thought that former refugees must have a more difficult time than normal Japanese victims. So I went to church, but it was still, after the fire, it was so difficult to find the church without any address, and found out all the building was destroyed by earthquake and fire. Only the statue remained outside. People was having morning service around the fire. I proposed, please, why don't we rebuild the church out of paper? He didn't trust me. Actually, he thought I'm crazy to propose making building out of paper after the fire. But I didn't give up. I commuted the church morning service every Sunday from Tokyo. Next, please. Then I got to know the Vietnamese people, they are living like this in the park. In shiny days, inside of the shelter become over 40 degrees. Rainy days, totally floor get wet. Also Japanese government started making temporary houses. City of Kobe is so dense. Most of the houses was built outside of the city. But these Vietnam people has only chance to work in particular area, particular factory. So if they move out from center of the city, they're going to lose their job. That's why they wanted to keep living in the park, even such a poor condition. Also, Japanese neighbor people try to kick them out. They afraid this park is becoming like a slum. So I thought that we have to provide something more, something healthier, but also something very looks very temporary to be accepted by neighbor to keep living here. So I gathered my student and making the shelter out of paper tube and beer crates. And we put some sandbag inside because of the hurricane typhoon. This is the interior. People was living there for 4 years like this. And so they are very happy that it's much better than living like this, better than this. Next, please. Then finally, priest trusted me to rebuild the church with me. So he gave me a small land, 10 meter by 15 meter. And again, I brought my student with a paper tube. It's very lightweight, inside is empty, of course. And this is the result. This is inside is oval shape, which is coming from one of my favorite church in Rome, designed by Bernini. So here is the priest. He said this is just fine to use only 2 or 3 years, but actually this was there for 10 years. This church and the use as a community center became the symbol of this city, accepting many concert, movie, gathering, wedding, so on. Then after 10 years, city was totally rebuilt, and the church decided to rebuild. I was happy to redesign. Also, there is a big earthquake in Taiwan, and we decided to donate this church to Taiwan. Next, please. So we disassembled this, sent over by ship, and assembled again. So this is in Puri, village of Puri in Taiwan. This became permanent church and community center in Taiwan. Then I was thinking, what is the definition of temporary structure and what is the definition of the permanent structure? As you can see as a victim, in the big city, even Brussels or Tokyo or wherever, you can see that the big developer buy the building, destroy it, and put a new one. So even building made in concrete can be very temporary as long as the building was built to make money. However, even such a building made in paper can be permanent building if people love it. That is my definition of what is temporary and what is permanent. Next, please. 1999 in Turkey, they have big earthquake, and I was asked to make temporary houses. All the material except this roofing, I just asked the Japanese contractor to donate plastic sheet I brought over. However, all the paper tube and plastic beer crate was donated free from local manufacturers. And so we made a 50 unit with volunteer people. Next, please. 2001, west side of India, they had earthquake, and I was asked to come to build temporary houses again. And this paper tube was found very easily from local fabric manufacturer. Because the process of making paper tube is so easy with a very small machine, this manufacturer of the fabric have their own paper tube. So we just bought very cheaply. And the only problem was I couldn't find any beer crates. Because in this area, nobody drink beer, nobody drink alcohol. So local architect, the Indian architect recommended me to use a Coca-Cola, red Coca-Cola crate, but also that is out of context. So we made a foundation and floor out of traditional method of the mud. Some of them are used as a house, some of them used as a school. And I was surprised, 2 years ago, my local architect sent me a photo that this temporary house was still used as a local clinic. So this was built 2001, so which means already 21 years there. So still used because people really care of this. Next, please. And also the Sumatra earthquake, there is many the city around destroyed, including this village in south of Sri Lanka, Kilinda. Village was totally destroyed by tsunami. And I went to there to build 50 units of the permanent houses with locally available mud cement brick with volunteer people. And actually, I created a new problem because some of the village people, their house was not destroyed, but they envied the house I designed. So they said, "Oh, I'm gonna destroy my house. Please build one for me." But that was a nice reaction from local people. Next, please. 2008, in China, Sichuan, this area in the city of Chengdu, they had a huge earthquake when they had a Beijing Olympic. Over 30,000 people killed. Also, because of the poor construction, many of the schools are destroyed. And as soon as this happened, I went there to start making temporary houses, but the local government didn't want any foreigner to make the temporary houses. But instead, I met a schoolmaster. She had the elementary school, and she has no classroom. So I just brought my student to work with the local Chinese student for 5 weeks to build 9 classrooms over 500 square meters with paper tube with a wooden joint. Everything was made by the student. Next, please. This is the inside of the classroom. As you see, the children look so happy because they could come back to their original school. And this also still exists. Next, please. 2009, L'Aquila, near Rome, the old city was totally destroyed like this. And I went to there and I met the mayor. He said that the L'Aquila is very famous for music. They have their own Philharmonic Orchestra and the School of Music, but there are no place to play. All the concert hall was destroyed by earthquake. So I promised to make temporary concert hall. The mayor gave me the land in free. But also, that time, do you remember him? Very famous. He's a former Prime Minister of Italy, Mr. Berlusconi. And he invited G8 summit, that time G8, not G7, because Russia was part of this. He invited them, he wanted to invite them to his resort island, fancy conference. But because of this aspect, he decided suddenly to bring the world leader to L'Aquila. Then Japanese embassy in Rome organized the nice press conference with 2 prime ministers. And I'm sure that Mr. Berlusconi doesn't know what he's holding. This is a paper chip sample. Because of this fabulous press conference, I got €500,000, next please, to build temporary concert hall. And again, I didn't want to use a concrete wall, so this wall is made of scaffolding and a sandbag to have a good sound insulation. But because it's so ugly, I just got the red curtain donated, just rounded. Inside is a paper tube. It's not structure, it's just for different diameter for the acoustical reasons. And the exterior tube, these are structural tube in paper. And 250 seats, and this is still the symbol concert hall in L'Aquila, Italy exists. Next, please. 2010, Haiti in Caribbean Ocean. This small island, left half is Haiti, right half is the Dominican Republic. And because of the capital, Port-au-Prince, all the airport and the port was closed, so I had to fly to Santo Domingo in Santo Domingo to drive over in 7 hours, finding out the situation like this. Because no materials were available in Haiti, so all the material was prepared in the university in Santo Domingo, brought over to teach the local victims to build by themselves with a paper tube and just plastic sheet. Next, please. 2011, northern Japan. You must still remember we had a big earthquake, tsunami, and also nuclear problem, including the city of Fukushima. And this is a typical the facility for the victim of the earthquake. They have to stay here for 4 months until government temporary houses are built. No privacy. So that they suffer without privacy, especially women. It's impossible to stay like this. So I found out some of the women stay in the car and get injured or they pass away because of the economic class syndrome. So I thought the privacy is most basic human right we have to provide. So I started making the partition out of paper tube, which you're gonna see today, the small, the larger diameter with hole, small diameter just inserted. That's it. And just the fabric curtain with a safety pin.